Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. This is all about controlling the white background. Achieving an even, well-exposed white background is surprisingly tricky. But done well, it can be a valuable technique, useful for a variety of subjects. In this case, although the background and the foreground is white, I still have a well-defined shadow grounding the subject. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so what I've got set up so far is this background. So this is a seamless background roll. This is 3.5 meters or 12 feet wide. And I've got that arranged with a nice gentle curve at the bottom here. And I've put a piece of white perspex underneath the subject itself. Now the reason I did that is because the background paper can wrinkle a little, so in order to have a very smooth surface I've put the railway sleeper on a piece of white perspex. Now hopefully when this is lit properly the edges of this should disappear, but we'll see how we go with that. Okay, so first thing then, the camera that I'll be using today is this full frame digital SLR with a 24-70 zoom on the front of it and a flash sync trigger on the top. Now this flash sync trigger can also control the energy in the studio flashes that I'll be using. And the camera is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to see the results as we go along. Okay, so the first thing to do is to set up the shot. Now I'm going to use this tripod and I'm going to just open out the legs here so that I can get it very close to the ground. Okay, we'll just pop that down there somewhere, like that. And then get the camera and just pop that on the top of the tripod, like so. Okay, so with that on, I'll just line up the shot. There we are. So the first thing I'll do is just zoom that in to about there, I think. And we'll just move that over just to centralize the image. There we are. Something like that. Okay. So with that all done, what I'll do now is turn the camera on. And the software has recognized the camera. And these are the settings that's on the camera at the moment. So it's in full manual mode with a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second, ISO 100, at an aperture of f8. And f8 should be sufficient for this sort of image at giving a reasonable depth of field. Okay, so the next thing to do would be just to grab an image just with the house lights, just to make sure we don't get any contamination. Okay. There we are, and you can see from that that there's virtually no image there at all, which is what we want. So any light that I add now will be the only light which affects the subject. Right, so the first thing to do is to think about how to light this background to make it just white. I don't want it over white because then it will start to burn the edges of the subject, and also it will bleed into the floor area. Which is what I want to avoid, so I can create a shadow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just use this Profoto B1X Studio Flash, and I'm just going to place it about 1 meter away from the edge of the background paper there, and pointing vaguely at the background. Okay, so we'll just turn that on. There we are. So at an arbitrary energy level, I'll just grab an image and we'll assess the exposure. So from this image, I can see that it's a little underexposed. So what I'm going to do is add some energy to that flash. And to start with, I'm just going to add 3 stops. So we select that flash, and just add 3 stops to it. There we go. And I'll just grab that again. Yes, that's starting to get there. You can see that at this side we can see all the wrinkles and various lumps and bumps in the background, but over here all that's disappeared to a almost pure white. If you watch the numbers at the top of the screen here, this will give an indication of the exposure where the cursor is. So just down here, for instance, we're getting 230, so 255 would be the maximum, so we're not actually achieving that yet. So I'm going to add another stop. There we go. We'll just grab that again. So with that extra stop of energy, this is starting to come up quite well. It's still possibly not pointing in quite the right place. So to help me assess that, what I'm going to do is just start up the exposure warning in the software here. You can see that this is a red patch which denotes that this is very close to full saturation. So that red patch isn't actually covering very much of the background. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is just move this light ever so slightly so that it's pointing further across the background, like so. And I'm also going to adjust the zoom on this zoom reflector to about there. There we go. So with those changes made, we'll grab another image. And now you can see that the red patch that I've got here has got considerably bigger. Okay, so with those small changes, that's probably where we want to be on that light. So what I need to do now is just copy that, mirror it if you like, over on the other side, just with another studio head. So here we have another studio head. Pop that there. Turn this on. I'll set the energy on this to the same as the one which is over on the other side there. And we'll just point that vaguely in the right direction and see how we go. I'll also adjust the zoom reflector to match the one on the other side. So it's all about matching the pair of lights, really. So with those both now on, we'll grab another image. There. Okay, so in this image you can see that most of the background is now at or around 255, 256, which is what we want. So I can now dispense with the exposure warning. There we go. So we're getting quite a nice even white in the background there. But at the base here, we're getting some shadows from those two studio heads. So to get rid of those shadows and also generally make the foreground here a little darker, so we can pick out the shadow when I come to light the subject itself, what I'm going to do is add some flags to these lights just to flag off the very front of the set here. So here I have just a cloth flag on a C stand. We'll just place that in there, something like that. There we are. So with that in something like the right position, again, I'm just doing one side at a time. I'll just grab an image. There, and you can see now that most of the shadow is coming from the light on this side. So I'll just add another flag to that. And we'll grab another image and just see what we get now. Okay, so I can see from this that there's a little bit of fine-tuning required. So what I'm going to do is just move this flag ever so slightly further in. like so. And I'll just adjust the other one as well. I just want to move this ever so slightly also. Like that. And now we'll grab that again. Okay, so with those adjustments made, what you should be able to see now is that the back of the Perspex sheet has been blended into the background on both sides. So this is what we had before, with all sorts of shadows in the wrong place, and this is what we have now. So this is relatively dark compared to the background. So at this stage, I think we're about ready to actually light the subject itself. So in order to light this and create a shadow going down onto the Perspex, what I'm going to do is use this D2 studio head with a reflector on the front, and I've also got some barn doors on here. So initially what I'll do is I'll open that out, and I'll just put this up in the air. There we are. So with that in something like the right position, probably need a little changing. What I'm going to do is just turn off the background lights, so it's just this one which will fire. So at an arbitrary energy level, I'll grab an image and we'll just see what we get. So this image is showing that it's a little underexposed. I might just add 2 stops of energy to that, just to bring it up a bit. So I'll just select that head and just add 2 stops of energy, like so. We'll just grab that again. There, that's a better exposure, but you can also see that the background has now become lit. So in order to stop that happening, what I'm going to do is just drop the light down a little, move the barn door, and then just place it back up in the air again. So I'm just going to, in effect, shade the background. With those adjustments made, we'll grab that again. There we are. That's much better on the background. This is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. It doesn't have to be completely dark. I just don't want it to add too much to the background. Okay, so now with that done, I'll turn the 2 background lights back on, like so. And we'll capture an image with everything firing at the same time. So I think that's worked quite well. This has blended in nicely, and we've got a nice defined shadow on the Perspex sheet there. Okay, so with that image now captured, it just remains to go into Photoshop to do the minimum of post-production. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image I captured earlier. And the first thing I'm going to do is just make a copy of this so that I can leave the camera original alone and edit the copy. So the way I prefer to do that is just to right click on the background layer, ask for a duplicate layer, and just ask for a new document. And we'll call it monolith. There we go. So Photoshop has now made me a new document, which is monolith at the top here, so I can dispense with the camera original. Right, so what do we need to do here? Well, I think the first thing that I will do is just look at what this will look like when I've cropped it to the correct shape. So if I just apply the crop tool here, I'm using this for video, so I'm going for a specific ratio of 16:9, but you'd use something which would enhance your subject. So I'll just bring the side in a little and just move the thing over a little in the image, like that. I think that's more or less what I want. Okay, so with that done, I'll just click on the commit. There we are. Next thing I'll do is just look at the general density of the image, which I think is pretty good, but may just have a little adjustment. So I'm just going to add an adjustment layer, and I'm going to add a levels adjustment. So in here, what I will do is just reset the white point, just to make sure everything is pure white. So I'll just click somewhere in the center here. There we are. And I think while I'm here as well, I'll just adjust the contrast. Just back that down a little. There we are. So with those tiny adjustments made, I'll just do something about this corner here. The way I'm going to do that is just add another layer, and with a paintbrush, making sure I've got white selected as the foreground color, I'm just going to paint that out on this new layer. So if I make any mistake, I can just dispense with that layer and start again. Gives you a bit of redundancy. So while I've got the white, I'll also address this part in the corner here, which I just want to carefully blend the edge of the perspex away, like so, just leaving the shadow. There we are. Now, as this is all on a different layer, should I make an error, like for instance that sort of thing, I can just erase it. So just with the eraser tool, I'll just take that back to where it was. There. And there we have it. So by careful adjustment of the lighting, I've been able to create a pure white background and still retain a shadow on the floor. Now this is very useful for a number of different subjects, and I think works reasonably well for this one. And all in all, I think that's turned out rather well. Okay, well, I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and click the like button. Thank you very much for watching.